Thank you. I am very honored to have been invited. This is my first time to Australia, and it's been on my bucket list for my entire life. So thank you. The role I've had for almost 10 years, and just within the last month, I have been invited to be a keynote speaker on 3 continents. So we finally have hit the tipping point. This role deals with running legal like a business. There's a paradigm shift in terms of how legal services are being purchased, and there is a centralization of this activity in the legal operations role. I should give you some context. The reason this is happening is because there is a fundamental expansion of the general counsel's role. And I'll take you quickly through a couple of decades. From the 1990s to the 2000s, the general counsel was primarily the interface between outside counsel and in-house. There was very limited sensitivity to outside counsel fees and rates. There was fear infused into the system. If you bought anything that was less than the most expensive, the risk of losing a gigantic, bet the company case was too great, and we kind of flew under the radar for a decade. From 1990 to 2000, the issues became more complex and regulated, and they became international. And there was still a heavy reliance on outside counsel, and there was some sensitivity to outside counsel rates and fees. And then we came into the 2000s, and we had some difficulty in the industry in terms of being able to run our businesses with some responsibility. So we had not been expected to meet budgets. We had not been expected to leverage technology, produce metrics, any of those types of activities that most other business organizations within an enterprise would be expected to do. So in 2000, that, however, changed dramatically, and there is a strategic reliance now on outside counsel. It is not a blanket reliance on outside counsel, and there is a moderate to strong sensitivity to fees and to rates. As a result of this, many general counsels started to hire a legal operations director or head of legal operations to run the business side of a department. This creates a paradigm shift in how legal services are purchased, because now spend is centralized in one role. It also takes the relationship of attorney to attorney out of the business conversation. So substance is still communicated from attorney to attorney. However, rates, technology, efficiency, value, all of that now is moved into this operations role. It involves a change in people, a change in process, and a change in technology. As a result, there is an expanding legal ecosystem. So it used to be in-house counsel, outside counsel. Now you have in-house counsel, you have the general counsel, you have the legal operations lead or director who reports directly into the general counsel, and it, by the way, is the only other role that goes across the whole department because it is so strategic. And then you have procurement. So there's your in-house. Then you have your outside counsel, but now you have a whole new set of participants. You have legal outsource providers, you have legal technology providers, and you have consultants. And now you have law schools, because this role itself has the ability to be a career choice for many of those students in law schools. However, there is no current curriculum to train for this particular choice. So we the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium is starting to work with the law schools. Some of the top 10. I sit on a curriculum committee with Northwestern University. Harvard has been interested. Berkeley is interested. Stanford is interested. All of that has happened just within the last couple of years. So when I start talking about a tipping point, many of us have been doing this for a decade. But the legal profession is relatively conservative. So you have beta testers, you have innovators, then you have your first adopters, and now we are in the first adopters. And so many of the departments can say, all right, well, they're using it, it must be okay. And we're almost moving into the late adopter phase. Probably within the next 5 years, we'll have late adopters. And so if you haven't adopted within the next 5 years or so, you will be behind the 8 ball. So out of this came a consortium. Because it's a new role, many of us didn't really know what to do. And you have all new players, right? All new technology providers. Everybody's kind of new in the industry. So we developed a consortium. It's called CLOC, Corporate Legal Operations Consortium. I do have to say that Telstra has raised their hand to start a chapter in Australia. And so if any of you are interested in getting involved, holler. I have limited time, so I think I'm going to just start talking about where we are right this minute. We had our first institute, and notice we called it an institute, not a conference, because we wanted a kind of a gathering where we could give deep training on a number of different topics. So we had 50 sessions, and it just happened the first week of May in San Francisco. 50 sessions, and all of the speakers were expected to leave their audience with something that they could put into the hands of those participating that they could actually take back and leverage in their own roles. Some of the feedback from that was the people in this new role were like, oh, thank goodness, we have been sitting like an island. It's hard to keep up. It used to be the technology providers would have a new tool out every 6 months or so. And we, NetApp, are a beta testers, so I keep very current on the new technology. I can't keep up anymore. We are getting maybe 1 or 2 a month now in terms of brand new technologies. The other thing is that the consortium has about 150 members in it right now. I added 10 in the last week, and they involve companies that compete with each other maybe in the marketplace, but we do not compete with each other when it comes to running an efficient legal organization. So we have people like AIG, Google, Oracle, Goldman Sachs, Uber, Yahoo, Cisco, Adobe, and on and on. So we have billions of dollars of spend sitting in one room. And so you should check out the website, actually, clock.org, because we have started to create some guidelines for the industry. The first guideline that we created was just a definition for the role, because we continually got approached by general counsel saying, I think we should probably start looking at adding the role. What does the role do? So you can get on, and that's one of the guidelines that you can find on the website. And then the second guideline that we have created and put up on the website for anybody to leverage are a set of guidelines, billing guidelines. The next is, and we'll probably go up in the next couple of weeks is an e-signature policy. And then we have a whole list of guidelines that will be coming after. There is no need to reinvent the wheel when you're running an in-house legal department. We should be doing things 80% of the time should be the same. When I hear, oh, you need to customize it for this department or this department, I don't buy it anymore. Most of running a legal department like a business is so similar that we should be collaborating and developing processes and dealing with technologies and people in a very similar fashion. One of the other things that's kind of unique to the CLOC organization is we have opened our arms to the entire legal ecosystem. So we have invited outside counsel, technology providers, consultants, law schools, and of course all of our members into the room, because what we found, and it, by the way, it wasn't always like this. Even just a year ago, we were very strict about membership, who could participate and who couldn't. But what we have found is if you are not all in the same room together, we get these solutions that don't work. So we need to actually be collaborating and communicating. And one of the areas I think of opportunity is that the technology that is being developed for outside counsel is very different than the technology that is being developed by in-house counsel. One of the reasons is because outside counsel has a focus on profits per partner, and in-house counsel has a focus on efficiencies. And they are not quite talking to one another right now. So it would be nice, and there are a couple of, I have two favorite technologies that actually would span both in-house and outside, and those are electronic signature, and there's a workflow technology that would work on both sides. That would at least get us started in terms of communicating and working differently with one another.
Great. Connie, in the new environment that you've identified and talked about, what would be the key drivers or the key factors that you would be looking at when contemplating engaging an external lawyer?
If you're talking about what we contemplate when hiring an external lawyer, that encompasses the whole legal ecosystem. So it really is right-sizing what should go to the bespoke attorney, what should go to outside counsel, what can be outsourced to India, our NDA, and what can go to technology. So each time we are looking for, or what can actually come back in-house, because it's far less expensive to bring things in-house than it is to send it out, unless, of course, you can get it onto technology or into an outsourced provider's hands.
Questions from the panel?
I'm curious to ask a question because you're speaking directly to my heart for what I do as a job. I'm very curious. You mentioned outside counsel members of CLOC. I totally understand why in-house counsel are. What do outside counsel bring?
Outside counsel bring a different lens, right? Because so we will always need outside counsel. And so if we can learn to work in this sweet spot of outside counsel, then it is a win-win. But what is happening right now is we are not speaking the same language at all, and outside counsel I think they don't appreciate the fact that there will not be a confrontation. We just will quietly move the business. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes, right, it would make sense for maybe an outside counsel to buy one of these technologies and OEM it to 10 in-house departments, particularly if you're looking at a small department, right, who can't afford to buy all of these technologies. So they could buy an NDA portal, and they could OEM the technology and the process for a number of different organizations. Rolling out operations in-house is not as easy as you think. We are getting pushback from in-house attorneys as well. I mean, the in-house attorneys came from outside counsel. So we are change agents, extreme change agents. So if you can bridge it by using an outside counsel who has leveraged some of the new process and policies and technologies, that might be a great interim solve.
That's clever.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. That was fascinating, and the language you speak rings true at so many levels. And I'm hoping that a lot of the external lawyers are hearing what you're saying, and that is, I hear from you that collaboration is key, and that is the key driver of survival if I can put it that way, of the legal profession and legal services. For in-house, our client is a sophisticated client and needs sophisticated services, and their demands is what's driving the change on how services are being provided. Connie, can I ask, what feedback have you received from your presentations here in Australia as far as what you've delivered here today?
So it's an interesting question because I have been receiving feedback for 10 years. And within the last month, the feedback has fundamentally shifted. There is a true interest in collaborating and trying to figure out how we can actually make this work. And it was really interesting at the Institute. First of all, we planned it, and we didn't have a event provider. So many of us were, patted on the head like, you guys do not know what you're doing. You have 2.5 months to put this institute together, and we had 500 participants, and we had 60 sponsors. And the interesting piece about it is the exhibit hall. Even within the exhibit hall, the exhibitors were communicating and collaborating amongst themselves. There was like a buzz. So the industry itself is evolving at a rate that that we have not moved at before, and in a very kind of compassionate, empathetic manner. And I think up until now it has been more combative, and we're starting to see that shift.
Daryl, do you have a question?
I do, Connie. Can you give us a comparison between the legal culture and the Australian culture around these issues? Are there things we can learn from the US experience to take on board?
I think probably that the U.S. is a little bit further ahead, and so you won't have to go through all the learnings of what technology works and what doesn't work, and there are a lot of mistakes made when you're a beta tester or one of the innovators, and so now nobody has to suffer through those, right? Take the best practices and use the guidelines and join the parade and the wins now. So I spoke at a conference in Melbourne. I was told I mispronounced it when I presented a couple of days ago, and before I even got here, a day later, one of the outside counsel firms had asked that I come and present to their partners. So there has been an immediate reaction, fabulous immediate reaction. And there are in-house departments who have raised their hands and are interested in starting the very first global clock chapter. So, yeah, we wouldn't expect anything less than from the Australians.